The market was loud, filled with the cries of merchants and the smell of metal and dust. On this colony world, everything had a price. Weapons, machines, food, even people. Here, humans were bought and sold like broken tools. In the center of the square, a young girl stood on a small stage. Her hands were bound, her face dirty, her clothes torn. She was thin, too thin, and her eyes looked tired, almost empty. The auctioneer shouted above the noise, "Worthless, too weak, a burden to feed." His voice carried across the crowd. But still, for the sake of fairness, we start the bid. At 1 credit only. The people laughed. Some shouted insults. Others shook their heads, not even interested. To them, the girl was nothing less than nothing. Just another mouth that could not work, could not fight, could not serve. The girl did not cry. She did not beg. She only stared down at the ground, silent, as if she had already accepted her fate. The auctioneer grew impatient. 1 credit? Anyone? Or shall we throw her out into the wastes? He laughed at his own words, but no one raised a hand. And then a voice spoke. Calm, steady. It came from the back of the crowd. "I will take her." The laughter stopped. The people turned. A tall man in a dark coat stepped forward. His hair was streaked with gray, his eyes sharp and cold, like someone who had seen too many wars. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. "You? For her, she is worth nothing." The man shrugged. "Then I will pay nothing, or whatever little you ask." The crowd burst into laughter again. He must be mad. One man shouted, "Why waste money on broken trash?" But the tall man did not look at them. He looked only at the girl. For a moment, her empty eyes met his. Something flickered their confusion, maybe even a spark of fear. Or was it hope? The auctioneer grumbled, but finally waved his hand. "Fine. Sold for nothing. Take her, and may she not be your burden." Chains were unlocked. The girl stepped down from the stage. The crowd muttered and shook their heads, but none cared to stop them. She was, after all, worthless. The man turned and walked away. The girl followed, unsure, silent. She expected him to treat her like all the others had, with cruelty, with anger, with disgust. But he did not speak. He did not even look back. They walked through the dusty streets until they reached the landing port. There, an old starship rested, scarred from battles long past. Its hull was dented, its paint faded, but it still stood proud, like a warrior who refused to die. The man stopped at the ramp. "Come," he said. His voice was not soft, but not harsh either. It was the voice of command, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. The girl hesitated. She looked back at the market, at the people who had laughed at her. There was nothing for her there, nothing but emptiness. So she stepped forward into the ship. Inside, the air smelled of oil and old metal. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, like forgotten runes. She touched one with her finger, and for a moment she felt something. A shiver, a memory she could not understand. The man watched her, his sharp eyes unreadable. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked. She pulled her hand away, frightened. "What? What is this place?" Her voice was weak, hoarse from silence. "This," the man said, "is where your story begins." The ship's engines roared to life. The ground shook as the vessel lifted from the port, leaving behind the colony, the market, and the cruel voices that had called her worthless. The girl sat in silence, staring at the stars through a small window. For the first time, she felt something strange, something new. Not safety, not trust, but the faintest hint of possibility. She turned to the man. "Why? Why did you take me?" The man leaned back in his chair, shadows crossing his face. He did not answer at once. Finally, he said, "Because you are not what they think. You are not worthless. You are more than they can ever imagine." The girl shook her head. "No, I am nothing. I always have been." The man's eyes narrowed. "Then you will learn, you will see. Worth is not something given. It is something you prove, and you, child." He paused, his voice dropping low. "You have a destiny written in fire." The girl stared at him, confused, even frightened. But deep inside, something stirred. A whisper she could not ignore. Far away in the dark reaches of space, something else stirred too. Machines older than empires. Voices that had been silent. For centuries, they felt her spark. They woke from their slumber, and soon, they would come for her. The old ship rose higher, breaking through the dusty clouds of the colony world. Its engines groaned, but they carried it steadily into the black sea of space. The girl sat quietly, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. She had no name to give, number home to return to, and no reason to hope. The man sat across from her, silent. His coat hung heavy on his shoulders, his eyes fixed on the stars outside. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship. Finally, the girl broke the silence. "Why me?" Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the hum. "Why take me when I am nothing?" The man's gaze shifted to her. His face was calm, but his eyes seemed to burn with something deeper. "You are not nothing," he said. "I chose you because you are more than you know." She shook her head. "They called me worthless." They laughed. "They sold me for nothing." "And yet," the man replied, "you are here, sitting on this ship, alive. Do you not see? The universe has a strange way of hiding its treasures where no one dares to look." His words confused her. She lowered her eyes, ashamed. But inside her chest, a small spark. Lead a spark she did not understand. The ship entered the dark lanes between stars. They passed broken satellites, rusted stations, and drifting cargo hulls. It was a graveyard of forgotten things. The girl thought it fitting she too was a forgotten thing. But the man guided the ship with skill, as if he knew every shadow of the galaxy. His hands moved over the controls like a soldier who had done this for a lifetime. At last, he stood and walked to a small locker near the wall. He pulled out a pack of dried food and placed it in front of her. "Eat," he said. She hesitated. "This is for me." "Yes," he replied simply. Her hands trembled as she opened the pack. It was nothing special, just stale bread and a strip of dried meat. But to her, it was more than food. It was the first act of kindness she had known in years. She ate slowly, almost afraid it would be taken away. The man watched her without a word. Later, the ship's lights dimmed as they entered sleep cycle. The girl curled up in the corner, her eyes heavy. But when she closed them, the visions came. Again, she saw stars burning. She saw great machines with eyes of fire. She saw armies marching under banners she did not know. And at the center of it all, she saw herself standing tall, glowing with power, her hands tearing through steel like paper. She woke with a cry, her heart racing. The man was there, standing in the doorway. He had not been sleeping. His sharp eyes studied her carefully. "You saw them again, didn't you?" She blinked. You know about the dreams." "They are not dreams," he said. "They are echoes. Memories that do not belong to a worthless girl." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" He stepped closer. "I am saying that you are not what they told you. You carry something. Inside you something ancient, something dangerous." Her body froze. "Dangerous?" "I don't understand." "You will," he replied. His voice was firm, but not unkind. "In time, The next day, the ship landed on a barren moon. Its surface was gray, its air thin and cold. The girl followed the man out of the ship, her bare feet pressing into the dust. Before them stood ruined stall towers broken by time, their walls carved with glowing lines, just like the ones on the ship. The girl felt her skin prickle. She touched one of the broken stones, and once again, that strange shiver ran through her. Images filled her mind, warriors in armor, machines bowing before her, voices calling her by a name she did not know. She pulled her hand back, frightened. What is this place? The man's voice was low, almost reverent. This was once a fortress of the first ones, long before humans spread across the stars. Long before empires rose and fell. She stared at him. Why bring me here? His eyes fixed on her, sharp as blades. Because these ruins respond to you, not to me, not to anyone else. Only to you. Her heart raced. That's impossible. I'm no one. The man shook his head. No, you are the reason I came here. The reason I chose you. He paused, his voice dropping lower. They thought you worthless, but I see what you are. And so will others. Soon she trembled. Others, his expression darkened. Yes, the galaxy is not blind. Already, they will have felt your spark. They will come for you. And when they do, you must be ready. She stepped back, fear rising in her chest. But I can't fight. I can't do anything. The man placed a hand on her shoulder. His grip was strong, grounding her. That is why I chose you. Not because you are ready, but because you can become more than you are. Worth is not given. Girl, it is proven. For the first time, she looked into his eyes without fear. And what she saw there was not cruelty, not pity, but belief by far above the barren moon. In the endless dark, unseen eyes turned their gaze toward her. Signals spread across the void. Ships stirred in hidden docks. Something ancient had awakened, and it had found her. The ruins stood silent under the pale light of the moon. Cold winds whispered through broken stone, carrying voices that were not truly there. The girl stood among the shadows, her heart heavy with confusion. She had never asked for this. She had never asked to feel different. But the man watched her closely, as if waiting for something. You feel it, don't you? He said softly. She hugged her arms around herself. I don't know what I feel. The man walked slowly to one of the great walls. He placed his hand on the glowing lines. This place remembers power, and it responds to you. That means something. Her eyes lowered. It can't mean anything. I'm just me. Weak. Worthless. His voice hardened. Stop saying that. Worthless is what they called you. It is not what you are. Look closer. Listen. The girl turned back to the ruins. She stretched out her hand. For a moment, nothing happened. But then the lines began to glow brighter. A soft hum rose in the air like the beating of a heart. Her chest tightened. The ground beneath her feet trembled. Suddenly, images burst into her mind again. Flashes of war. Soldiers kneeling before her. A vast army of machines, their metal faces turned toward her like worshippers. And her own voice, strong and commanding, shouting words she did not understand. She gasped and pulled her hand away. The glow faded. The humming stopped. Her knees gave out and she fell to the dust. What was that? The man came to her side, steadying her. That was you. A fragment of who you are. She shook her head violently. No, that wasn't me. I don't want this. I don't want to see these things. His grip on her shoulders tightened. His eyes were sharp. But his voice was calm. Listen to me. Denying it will not make it go away. The power is inside you. It has always been inside you, and now it is waking. That night, back on the ship, she sat alone in the small cabin he had given her. She could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the visions came back. The armies, the fire, the fear. Her hands shook. She pressed them against her face, whispering to herself, "It's not real. It's not me. It's not me." But then the ship jolted. Warning lights flashed red along the walls. She stumbled out into the hall, panic rising. The man was already at the controls in the cockpit, his jaw tight. "We've been found." Her heart pounded. Found by who? Before he could answer, the ship shuddered again. Through the viewport, she saw them, two sleek vessels cutting through the darkness, their black holes shining with strange symbols. "They are hunters," the man said grimly, "and they have come for you." The girl's breath caught. "Me?" "Why me?" "Because," he said, "they know what you are, what you carry inside, and they will not let you live." Fear filled her chest, cold and heavy. "I can't fight them. I can't do anything." The man's hands flew over the controls, pulling the ship into a sharp dive. "You will not fight them. Not yet. That is my task. Your task is to survive. Do you understand?" She nodded weakly, though her whole body trembled. The hunters fired. Bright beams of energy lit the void, streaking past the ship. Explosions rocked the hull. The girl screamed as the floor shook beneath her. The man's voice remained steady, calm, even in chaos. "Do not fear the storm. Learn from it." In that moment, the girl felt it again, the hum, the spark, the strange force. Inside her, it rose in her chest, burning hotter and hotter. Her fear twisted into something else. She staggered forward, her eyes glowing faintly. "Stop!" she cried. And for one impossible moment, the hunter's beams froze in midspace, hanging like glass. The ship stopped shaking. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The man's head turned sharply. His eyes widened. "You did that." The girl fell to her knees, the glow fading. The beams resumed, slamming harmlessly past the ship as the hunters overshot their mark. The man seized the chance, spinning the ship into a hidden asteroid field. The hunters followed, but the rocks were thick, dangerous. One slammed into a vessel, tearing it apart in fire and metal. The second was forced to pull back. The ship finally settled in the shadow of a giant asteroid, safe for the moment. The man switched off the alarms. His chest rose and fell slowly. Then he turned to her. "You stopped their fire. You bent space itself. Do you see now?" She shook her head, gasping for breath. I don't understand. I didn't mean to. I just wanted it to stop." His voice was quiet, but certain, and it did. "Because you willed it. That is the power waking inside you. Power that others fear. Power they will kill to control." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't want it. I just want to be normal." The man crouched before her. His voice was softer now, almost gentle. "Normal is a cage they built for you. But you are not their cage. You are their nightmare." Her heart raced. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to run. But deep inside, she knew something had changed. She was not the same girl who had been sold for nothing. Something inside her had awakened, and the galaxy had felt it. Far across the stars, in a system hidden from human maps, a great citadel floated in silence. Its walls were black stone and iron, carved with strange symbols that glowed like blood. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of machines older than empires. At the center of the citadel, a vast chamber pulsed with light. Here, the overlords watched. They were not human. Their forms were tall and thin, their skin pale like glass, their eyes burning red. They sat upon thrones of metal, their bodies linked to wires that carried their voices across the void. One voice spoke first, sharp as a blade. "She awakens." Another voice answered, low and cold. "Impossible. The experiment was lost, destroyed." The first voice hissed, "No. I feel her spark." The weapon child breathes again. The overlords turned their eyes toward the stars, and with a single command, hunters were summoned. Ships stirred in hidden docks, their engines roaring to life. Across the galaxy, a silent message spread: "Find the girl, bring her back, or burn everything in her path." On the old ship, the girl slept uneasily. Every breath carried fear. Every dream showed fire. She woke in the dark, her skin wet with sweat. For a moment, she forgot where she was. But then she heard the steady hum of the ship, the faint crackle of the engines. The man was at the controls, silent as always. He did not look at her, but his voice carried. "They will not stop now. They have felt you. They know you live." The girl sat up, hugging her knees. Her voice trembled. "Who are they?" He did not answer at once. His eyes stayed on the endless black outside. Finally, he said, "They are the ones who made you. The ones who decided you were weak, worthless. They threw you away. But now that you are awake, they will want you back." Her stomach twisted. "Made me? What do you mean? I was born like anyone else." The man turned then, his eyes sharp. "No, you were shaped, crafted, not born, but built. You are a living weapon, a creation of war." The words cut deep. She shook her head in disbelief. "No, no, that's not true." His voice was steady, without pity. "Your visions tell the truth. The machines you see, the armies, the fire, it is part of your blood. You were never ordinary." Tears blurred her sight. She pressed her hands to her face. "If that is true, then I am a monster." "No," the man said firmly. He rose from his chair and stepped closer. "A monster does not choose. You will choose. And that choice will decide if you are a weapon or hope." The ship drifted toward a quiet planet. On the edge of the system, its surface was covered in thick forests and silver rivers. Here, the man landed and led her out beneath the tall trees. For a while, they walked in silence. The air smelled of earth and rain, so different from the dust of the colony. Birds sang. Above, strange and beautiful. Finally, she spoke, her voice small. "Why do you help me? You don't even know me." The man's steps slowed. He looked at the sky through the branches. "I once knew another. A child they called worthless. Too, carried power inside her. She never had a chance. I will not watch that story repeat." She stared at him, trying to read his face, but he gave her no more answers. That night, as they rested by a small fire, the girl heard it, a whisper in her mind. A voice not her own. "Child, a fire, lost one. You cannot run." She froze, her heart racing. The voice echoed again. "You belong to us. You will return." She covered her ears, but it was useless. The voice was inside her. The man noticed her trembling. "They speak to you, don't they?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I hear them. I don't want to hear them." He placed a hand on the hilt of his blade. His eyes glinted in the firelight. "Then fight them. Their voices are chains. Break them. Do not let them define you." But she shook her head. "I'm not strong enough." His voice grew hard. "Strength is not given. It is found. And yours will come the moment you stop fearing what you are." Far above, the sky lit with fire. A shadow passed across the moon. The girl looked up, her blood running cold. Dark shapes moved through the Clouds Hunter ships. The man rose at once, his eyes narrowing. They have found us. Panic filled her chest. She stumbled back. What do we do? He drew his weapon, a blade that shimmered with blue light. His voice was calm, steady. We fight. We survive. And you learn. The hunters descended, their lights flashing like burning eyes. The forest shook with the roar of their engines. The girl's hands trembled. The voice whispered again inside her mind. You are ours. You cannot escape. Her heart pounded, fear turning to fire. For the first time, she felt the spark inside her not as a curse, but as something alive. Something waiting, and as the hunters closed in, the man's voice cut through the night like steel. Awaken, child, or we both die here. The night sky burned with the fire of descending ships. The forest shook as engines roared and branches snapped. The girl stood frozen, her heart beating so hard she thought it would tear from her chest. The man drew his blade, its blue light, shimmering in the dark. His voice was steady. Stay behind me. No matter what happens, do not run. But before the hunters reached the ground, the girl felt it again, that hum, that spark rising from within her. It spread through her veins like fire and ice at the same time. She stumbled forward, clutching her chest. The man saw the glow in her eyes and gave a sharp nod. Good. Do not fear it. Let it come. She wanted to deny it, to push it away, but the sky split open with beams of red light. The hunters had landed. Tall figures emerged from the ships, their armor black and jagged, their movements smooth like machines. Their eyes glowed red in the night. One of them spoke, its voice echoing through the trees like thunder. Return the child. She belongs. To us, the girl gasped. That voice, it was the same she had heard in her head. The man stood firm, blade raised. She belongs to no one. The hunters advanced, weapons in hand. And then it happened. The girl screamed, but not in fear. Her voice burst like a wave. The ground shook. The trees bent. A wall of invisible force rippled outward, throwing the hunters back. For a moment, silence filled the forest. The girl stared at her own hands, glowing faintly. What did I just do? The man's eyes were sharp, but proud. You revealed what you truly are. They escaped in the chaos, running back to the ship. The hunters followed, but the girl's strange power slowed them. Bursts of energy cracked the air whenever her fear grew too strong. At last, the old ship lifted off, breaking through the night sky. The hunters fired, but their shots missed. The girl sat shaking in the corner, her whole body trembling from exhaustion. The man steered them into deep space, finally speaking once the danger was far behind. You see now why they want you. You are no ordinary child. You are their creation. The throat was dry, her voice breaking. Tell me the truth. All of it. What am I? The man's hands tightened on the controls. He was silent for a long time, as if deciding whether to speak. Finally, he turned, his eyes heavy with memory. You were part of a program. Long ago, the overlords sought to build the perfect weapon. Not machines, not armies, but living beings, humans, altered and reforged. They called you the Fireborn. The girl's blood ran cold. Fireborn. He nodded. Children designed to carry power beyond measure. To command energy, bend matter, crush fleets with a thought. They made dozens, but most did not survive. And those who lived, they tested, trained, until they broke. Her breath caught. And me? You were different, the man said. Too small, too weak. They judged you a failure, worthless. They threw you away like trash. Her chest tightened. Worthless. The word echoed in her mind, the same word the crowd had shouted. At the auction, all her life, she had believed it. Now she knew why. Tears slipped down her cheeks. So that's it. I was nothing to them. The man's gaze softened, though his voice stayed firm. No. You were too human for them, too alive. That is why they could not control you. That is why they feared you. The girl shook her head, torn between fear and anger. If I'm their weapon, then what am I supposed to do? Fight for them? Fight against them? I don't even know who I am. Man stepped closer, crouching so his eyes met hers. Listen to me. You are not defined by what they built. You are not their weapon. You are what you choose to be. Her voice cracked, but I don't know how to choose. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then learn. I will teach you. The galaxy will call you many things: monster, weapon, savior. But in the end, only your choice matters. The girl stared at him, her chest rising and falling. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe she could be more than a tool, more than a mistake. But deep inside, the whispers of the overlords still echoed, "You are ours. You cannot escape." That night, when the man finally rested, the girl sat alone by the window of the ship. Stars stretched endlessly across the void, cold and bright. She touched the glass, whispering to herself, "Fireborn, a weapon, worthless." And yet, as she remembered the forest of the hunters falling, the power rushing through her another word came to her mind. Not worthless, not failure, different. She clenched her fists. For the first time, she felt a spark of anger, not at herself, but at those who had thrown her away. If they had made her, then they had also underestimated her. She turned her gaze to the stars. I am not yours. Far away, the overlords stirred. They had felt her defiance. Their machines hummed louder, their voices rising in fury. She grows. One hissed. She resists, another whispered. Then we will break her again. But in the dark, alone with her thoughts, the girl felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, not weakness. A choice, and choices, she realized, were more powerful than chains. The ship drifted in silence through the endless dark. The girl sat near the window, her reflection staring back at her in the glass. She still felt the weight of the revelation, the fireborn, the failed experiment, the discarded child. But deeper. Then the pain was something new. A heat, a spark that refused to die. The man stood at the controls, his face hard as stone. He had been quiet since telling her the truth, but now he spoke, his voice steady. They will come again, stronger, in greater numbers. You cannot keep running. Her hands curled into fists. What do you want me to do? I don't know how. To fight like you. He turned, his eyes sharp. You don't need to fight like me. You must fight like yourself. Days later, the ship entered the orbit of a broken planet. Its surface was scarred with craters and blackened ruins. The man landed near a shattered city, the skeleton of towers reaching into the red sky. This is where you begin, he said, stepping out. The girl followed, her feet crunching against dust and ash. The silence of the dead city pressed against her ears. The man drew a circle in the dirt with his blade. Stand there. She obeyed, uncertain. Close your eyes, he ordered. Feel the spark inside you. Do not fear it. Do not push it away. Draw it out. She squeezed her eyes shut, her chest rising and falling. She searched for the spark, the strange fire that had burst out when the hunters came. At first, she felt nothing. Only fear. Only doubt. But then she remembered the forest. The voices telling her she was worthless. The people who laughed as she was sold for nothing. She felt the anger, she felt the pain. and beneath it the spark grew hotter. Her hands began to glow. The dust around her feet rose, swirling like wind. The ground trembled. Her eyes snapped open. A wave of energy pulsed outward, cracking the earth. She gasped. "I did it." The man's voice was calm. "Good." Again. For hours he pushed her. Again and again she summoned the spark, each time stronger. The ruins shook, walls collapsing under waves of unseen force. Her body grew weak, but her will grew sharper. At last she collapsed to her knees, exhausted. "Enough. I can't." The man's shadow fell over her. "You can, and soon you must, because they are already here." Her head snapped up. Above the ruined city, the sky burned. Dark ships descended like vultures. The hunters had found them unknownly this time. There were more. The man drew his blade, his face unreadable. "This is your trial. Stand, or we both die." Fear gripped her chest, but this time she did not run. She rose, her hands shaking, her eyes glowing faintly. The hunters landed, their black armor gleaming, their red eyes locked on her. Their leader stepped forward, tall and sharp like a blade. Its voice echoed like thunder. "You are ours. You were made to serve. Come willingly, and the man may live." The girl's hands clenched. She felt the fire rise again, hotter than before. She thought of the auctioneer, the laughter, the word worthless. She thought of the whispers in her mind, chains trying to bind her, and she shouted back, her voice trembling but strong. "I belong to no one." The hunters charged. The man leaped into the fray, his blade flashing blue. He moved like lightning, cutting through steel, blocking fire. But they were many, too many. The girl's fear exploded into fury. She spread her hands, and the ground itself split. Energy burst from her chest in a shockwave that hurled the hunters back. Some rose again, their armor cracked. Others did not move at all. Her body shook, her vision blurring, but she did not stop. For the first time, she controlled the spark not just in fear, but by choice. The leader roared, raising a massive weapon. A blast of red fire shot toward her. She screamed, throwing up her hands. A shield of pure energy formed, the fire breaking. Against it, like waves against stone. The man's eyes widened. "Good, now strike." She lowered the shield and pushed outward. The blast turned into a spear of light that pierced through the leader's chest. The creature let out a metallic cry before collapsing into the dust. The remaining hunters froze. Then, one by one, they stepped back. Their glowing eyes flickered with something that almost looked like fear. The girl stood tall, her whole body glowing, her breath ragged. "Go," she said, her voice steady. "Tell them I am not theirs." The hunters hesitated. Then they retreated, dragging their broken leader back to the ships. The sky filled with fire as they fled. Silence fell over the ruins. The girl dropped to her knees, her glow fading. Her chest heaved with exhaustion. The man approached, kneeling beside her. For the first time, his hard expression softened. "You did it." Her voice cracked. "I didn't. I thought I would die." He shook his head. "No, you lived. And you chose. That is the difference between weapon and warrior." She looked at her trembling hands. "I was made to destroy. But maybe I can be more." The man placed a hand on her shoulder. "You already are." Far above, the stars burned bright. The hunters had fled, but the overlords would not stop. They had seen her rise. They had felt her strength, and somewhere, in the cold void, there. Voices whispered with anger. "She grows too strong. She defies us. Then we must bring the full fire of the Empire upon her." But the girl no longer felt like nothing, no longer worthless. She had faced them, and she had won. This was only the beginning. The ruins lay silent. Smoke drifted from the ground where the hunters had fallen. The girl sat on her knees, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The glow in her hands faded slowly until only trembling fingers remained. She had done it. For the first time in her life, she had not been powerless. The man she called her savior, her teacher, stood nearby, his blade still humming with blue light. He looked at her, and for once there was no hardness in his eyes. Only respect. You stood, he said simply. You chose. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her body was weak, but her spirit felt stronger than it had ever been. She looked at the broken earth, at the shattered armor of those who had called her theirs, and she whispered, I am not theirs. I am my own. That night, the ship carried them away from the dead world. The girl sat by the window again, staring at the stars. But this time, she did not see emptiness. She saw a possibility. The man moved slowly, his steps heavy. She noticed it for the first time, the way his hand pressed against his side, the blood darkening his coat. You're hurt, she said, her voice sharp with worry. He gave a faint smile. A wound, nothing more. But she saw the truth in his pale face. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Because, he said, lowering himself into the chair, this fight was yours. And you had to win it without thinking of me. Chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to deny, but the words stuck in her throat as the ship drifted deeper into space. She sat beside him. For a while there was silence, broken only by the soft hum of the engines. At last she asked, Why? Did you really choose me? You could have walked away. You could have left me in that market. His eyes closed for a moment, as if remembering something far away. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. Because once, long ago, I failed. I watched another child like you fall into their hands. I could not save her. I swore I would not make the same mistake again. The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to ask about the other child, but his eyes told her the pain was too deep to touch. Instead, she whispered, You didn't fail me. Days passed. The man grew weaker, though he tried to hide it. The girl began to care for him, bringing him food, cleaning his wounds, watching over him when he slept. She hated the helplessness. She hated seeing him fade. He had been her strength. When she had none, she feared she would lose him. One evening, as the stars burned bright outside, he called her to his side. His voice was soft, but his eyes were sharp, even as his strength failed. Listen to me, child. My time grows short. The wound is deeper than I let on. I will not see the end of this road. Tears filled her eyes. No, you can't. You can't. Leave me? Not now. He placed a hand on hers, his grip still strong despite his weakness. Do not weep. Death is no end. It is only the passing of the torch, and you must carry it. Her head shook violently. I can't. I'm not ready. I don't know how. His eyes locked onto hers, fierce and unshakable. You are. Ready? You proved it when you stood against them. You proved it when you chose to fight, not as a weapon, but as a human. Worth is not given, child. You claimed it. Her heart broke, but she held his hand tighter. I don't want to do this without you. He smiled faintly. You won't. My legacy lives in you. The stars blurred through her tears. His breathing slowed. His eyes drifted closed. And with one last whisper, he was gone. The ship felt empty. The silence was heavier than ever before. She sat beside him, her tears falling onto his cold hand. For a long time, she could not move. But then she remembered his words. Worth is not given. It is proven. She rose, her legs shaking. She walked to the window, staring at the galaxy stretched before her. Once she had been sold for nothing. Once she had believed she was worthless. But now she knew the truth. She was fireborn. Yes, shaped to be a weapon. Cast aside as a failure. Hunted as property. But she was not theirs. She was not what they made her. She was her own, far away, in the citadel of the overlords. Their voices thundered with fury. She has risen. She defies her makers. She is dangerous. And then the coldest voice spoke. Then we will bring our full armies. We will crush her. We will remind the galaxy who owns the fireborn. The chamber shook with their vow. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble. But somewhere in the void, a girl sat alone in her ship, her eyes glowing faintly as she looked at the stars. She was no longer the child who had been sold for nothing. She was no longer the girl who believed. Herself worthless, she was the beginning of something new, a spark that could ignite a fire across the stars. And though the overlords prepared for war, deep in her heart she whispered a promise. I will never be yours. I will never be nothing. I will be more